Hey guys, my name is Melanie Rimawi, and this is my Expository Trade Book and Strategies presentation. So, for my Expository Trade Book, I chose The Great Migration, which is an American story. The author and illustrator is Jacob Lawrence. The genre is nonfiction juvenile. If you're thinking about FMPs, the level would be a T, and the Lexile level is an 830. So, the target audience is for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade readers learning about the Great Migration and the events before and after that affected the Reconstruction on American life. Other topics that can be discussed when using this book could be the cause and effect, relationships relating to Jim Crow laws, segregation in the South, lack of opportunities for African Americans in the South, and even after slavery being abolished, how white landowners treated African Americans still. The summary of the Great Migration is an American story told through landmark paintings and is paired with a story told in first-person point of view. The story explores the northward flow of African Americans in the years following World War I. It describes the lifestyle and journey that African Americans faced through capturing raw emotions such as fear, hope, anger, and bravery within the illustrations. Families, like Lawrence's, are depicted making decisions which turned into part of U.S. history. Your social studies standard is SS4H6, and I do want to mention I picked only 4th grade standards, but as I stated earlier, that you could use 5th and 6th grade standards if it applied. I have 4 different writing standards. And then most of the literacy standards I went with are RL or RI standards. So for my first strategy, I chose reading logs. I chose them because reading logs are journals that students use to write or illustrate their reactions and opinions about the books they're reading or listening to that the teacher has read aloud. Students get a chance to clarify any misunderstandings while exploring ideas and deepening their comprehension. Reading logs allow students the opportunity to add lists or words to the word wall, map out diagrams to support story elements, and can write information about the author or genre. Entries can either be teacher-directed or student choice. So if it is a teacher-directed journal entry, the teacher is probably going to let the students pick from 2 or 3 different prompts, and it's going to be about a story they're reading as a whole group or small group. If it's a student choice, that is when a student has a book they are reading and they decide to write in their journal and break down anything that they don't understand about their story. So, why would you use this strategy for the Great Migration? Well, reading logs could be used for the Great Migration because the emotions and topics that they read are heavy, and it can be complicated to understand if they are not broken down. The strategy gives students time to think about the book and deepen their understanding of the topics. This writing tool supports students' learning and is an additional benefit for their writing fluency as they complete their journal entry for the story. Students get the chance to draw pictures, write words or sentences, or question the story in a private and safe place. Using the reading logs after reading the story would allow the students the time and opportunity to think about the events that impacted the Great Migration and understand the heavy emotions that came with African Americans moving north. So how would you use it? Okay, well, reading logs allow students for personal reflection and independent writing time. The steps that the teacher will follow are, for one, they'll prepare the reading log, and if you have prepared a reading log in the beginning of the year, then the students should know how to work them. They should know that they have to turn to a clean page, put the date, put the prompt that they're using or writing about, and they should know which journal is their reading log journal, so there should be no questions. The second step would be to write the entries, whether those are teacher-directed or student-directed or student-chosen. And then the third would be to monitor students' entries. So whether the teacher collects them, whether the teacher pulls them for a small group, the teacher needs to be actively going through and looking through their journals. So how would you use this strategy for the Great Migration? Teachers will use the reading logs after the students listen to the teacher read the story. The teacher will have the students complete their journal independently. The teacher will have students get their writing log journals ready and write the title of their story, author's name, and date in their journal entry. The teacher will give students 2 or 3 different prompts that they could use to guide them when completing their entry. Students will be asked to write their reactions and reflect about the book. They could also summarize the story and even relate the story to text, text to self, or text to the world. During this time, the students could go back into the story and look for any unknown words, discuss a specific part of the story, or take notes about the character or other story elements. Here's an example. So there would be 2 prompts on the left, and on the right, I did not write any sentences. I chose to draw pictures and I labeled them instead. So strategy number 2 was open-minded portraits. Why would you use them? You would use them because they provide students the opportunity to think more deeply about a character and reflect on story events from the character's viewpoint. This strategy gives students the chance to illustrate the character, recall appearance details and author included, and review the story's events while analyzing the theme when considering the character's activities or motivations described by the author. Teachers could use open-minded portraits for historical figures and social studies as well, which connects reading and social studies. You're connecting those different subjects together. So why would you use this strategy for this story? Well, it could be used for the story, The Great Migration, because students will think more deeply about the character Lawrence and his journey, as well as others' journeys. Students will reread specific parts of the story, which will support them before drawing their character's appearance. They could note parts of their reflections in their reading log as well, which ties in my first strategy I picked. So they have a plan in place once they start drawing their character. Students will fill their character's head with parts from the story, such as their emotions, events, names, and much more. So, how does a student use an open-minded portrait? Well, here's what the teacher would do when using this strategy. The teacher will make a portrait or tell the students to make a portrait of their character. They'll cut out the portrait, which I think the best way to do this is to have a template pre-made that you can hand out, because then students aren't stressing about trying to draw their character's head, because I know once some students get frustrated, it's really hard for them to get past that. And they'll keep asking for paper after paper after paper. So I think providing a template of the portrait and thinking pages might be the best bet here. So after they make their character, so they color him, add the details, and cut it out, they'll turn to their thinking pages part. They'll write, draw, label, anything however they want to on their thinking pages that goes along with their character. And then for the 4th step, the students will share the completed open-minded portraits, whether that's in a small group with a partner or as a whole class. Because I really think it's important that students share their portraits, because it could help one student out. So what one student says might help another student really understand what the story was, or understand a specific part that they might have been confused about. So how would you use the strategy for The Great Migration? Teachers will use an open-minded portrait to give students the opportunity to think about and break down a specific character's emotions, actions, problems, or events they encountered within the story. Students would begin by drawing their character's facial features, so this would make them think about their age, the skin color, their hair, their teeth. Are they old? Do they have wrinkles? Are they young? Anything like that. Is there a specific scar that they have? A birthmark? Because that helps them tell the story. After drawing their character, students would staple the portrait to a blank sheet of paper, or the thinking pages paper, where they'd begin to write down either in note form, sentence form, pictures, and labeling. It's up to the teacher, the character's thoughts and feelings at key points of the story. So the teacher would basically encourage students to share their portraits at the end, which gives them time to develop deeper thinking and collaborate in a positive atmosphere about these bigger and complex topics, such as the Great Migration, Jim Crow laws, slavery, and all the feelings that these African Americans had to go through as they went across their journey. and whether they decided as a family to stay south or move north. And here is an example. So on the left, I drew Jacob Lawrence's face, and then on the right hand side, I kind of drew the road because they were traveling on a journey. Some words I picked were brave, scared, hope, and then I also had the factories in the background because during this time, a lot of the men in the North went to war, so there were job opportunities for these African Americans in the North when there was little job opportunities for them in the South. So they were trying and going to fill those spots that were needed. Well, that is all I have for my presentation. If you have any questions, I am attaching a sheet with more information to this PowerPoint as well. Thank you.